Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. This is Mototech. Today we're going to make a Flux Fractus storage node using Proxmox. So I want to make this a two-parts video. The first part of the video, I'm going to talk about the Fractus node, things you should know so you can make that decision to see if it makes sense for you to host or start a Fractus node. And then the second part of the video, I'm going to focus on the hands-on portion. So here we can see that on March 3rd, 2023, Flux dropped their announcement. It says here, we're happy to share that Fractus node rewards program is starting. Fractus node will earn an additional 15% Flux on top of the Cumulus node reward. Rewards will be sent monthly, and the first one is this weekend. So this is really good news for people who's been running Fractus node already. Flux has been running Fractus node beta for a while, and during the beta, you actually don't get any additional rewards. So now for people who's already running Fractus node and for people who want to run a Fractus node like me, it is a good time to start. This Fractus node plays really well into Flux cloud strategy. So if you run a cloud service, you need the compute power, which Flux already have, and you need networking, which is supported by the big internet infrastructure. And the third thing you need is storage. You need massive amount of storage because of how much data people are using or storing all the time. Some of them are transactional, requires really high speed in and out, and some of them is just archive. For example, health record, you don't really need to pull your imageries and your old record all the time. Most of the time it just sits there. And in fact, this is the most difficult part, in my opinion, for Flux storage solution. You know, when a new company decides to transition from one cloud solution to another cloud solution, or even when they decided to transition from on-prem solution to cloud solution, a big challenge is to move the amount of data, we're talking about like petabytes or even more, from their existing storage to the cloud or from one cloud to another cloud. And if you want to move all that through internet, and we're talking about cable internet or fiber, the current infrastructure just does not support that very well. And then companies like AWS came up with this solution where they'll drive a huge truck to your company site, and they'll literally plug your servers, your hard drives into the truck and just suck all the data out of it and bring it to the truck, and then they drive that truck to their data center. Or in some cases, you can also ship your existing hard drive to the data center, and they'll just do that as a quick migration method. For a decentralized cloud like Flux, you can't do that because you have all these small hosts everywhere in the world. I mean, where are you going to drive your truck to? And obviously, nobody's going to send you a hard drive and say, hey, can you plug that into your node at home, right? It doesn't make sense. And that is why for storage node, right now, it requires 100 megabits per second. So when we look at Bunny Analyst website on Flux utilization, we can see that monthly revenue, quarterly revenue, annual revenue is all going up. Compute is at 13%. Memory utilization is only at 3%. We definitely want to see the memory utilization go a little bit higher. In storage, we're at 2.77%. So right now we see the storage, least storage is only 130 TB. And the total number we're going to look at right here, about 1 petabyte here, and at total SSD we actually have 8 petabytes. I definitely think this number will jump up a lot more, especially with the recent WordPress release. So there are two major ways to make a Fractus node. One is converting an existing Cumulus node into a Fractus node. And by the way, Flux team has made that process a lot more friendlier. You used to have to SSH, open up a file, and add a line manually, but now you can do everything through the multi-tool. The second way, which is going to be the way I'm going to demonstrate today, is making a Fractus node from scratch. And to me, this makes a little bit more sense, and here's why. The Fractus node is part of the Project Thunder, which is the storage solution for Flux Cloud. It is not called a Thunder node, however, it's called a Fractus node. The thing I want to show you here is the requirements. So first thing, we have the 1000 Flux. It's the same with the Cumulus node. You have to have 1000 Flux as collateral. You can take that out as any time, you don't ever lose it. And you need 2 core, 4 threads, basically 4 virtual cores or 4 physical cores, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 240 EPS for CPU performance. So far, everything is the same with Cumulus node. And here we have the storage requirement that's new and that's different. 10 terabyte hard drive on a single partition. And you can run a RAID, but for me, financially, it does not make sense for me to run a RAID right now. And for the hard drive, you need 80 megabytes per second. Disk write speed. Sequentially, you probably have way higher for most of the hard drive you can get on the market right now. And for the download and upload speed, that's your internet bandwidth, we're looking at 100 megabits per second. And I think this is where the problem is, right? Fractus nodes is not for everybody. So first, you have a hard disk requirement of 10 terabytes, and it requires 80 megabytes per second write speed, which is not too big of a problem. You can grab a used one from eBay, or you can just grab a new one from Best Buy or anywhere online. For me, I'm going to be using an old one I already have laying around. The bandwidth, 100 megabits per second. That's up and down. For a normal Cumulus node, I believe it's 25 megabits per second up and down, which can be easily met, even with cable internet, for example, Comcast. For most cable internet users, let's say you have a 1 gigabit internet, right? You do have the download speed of 1 gigabits per second. For upload, most of the time you have about 25 or 50, and it's very rare to see a 100 megabits per second upload speed for cable internet. However, if you do have that gigabits fiber, you will have that duplex speed up and down 1 gigabits per second. So before you start a Fractus node, I strongly suggest you to go online and test out your bandwidth. I will have the link in the description below. And one more thing worth noting here, and that is the main reason I'm not converting a node, I'm starting one from scratch. So there's a question here, does Fractus require SSD, NVMe, 220 gigabytes of storage? And it says, no, Fractus does not require any SSD, NVMe. What that means is that I can save my money on an SSD, which is more expensive. All I need is a normal hard drive. I can run the operating system on the hard drive itself. If I convert an existing Cumulus node, our operating system running on a 220 gigabytes of SSD, and on top of that, we're adding a 10 terabyte storage, it's just unnecessary. You don't need that 220 SSD. And of course, there's a way to move your entire operating system from your SSD to your normal hard drive. But the process will be a headache for a lot of people. And since we're talking about rewards, we want to take a look at currently what is the rewards for a Cumulus node, and then we will calculate that plus 15% for our Fractus node. So we can see Cumulus node currently is getting 5.86 Flux plus 4.69 Flux tokens, which you can also convert back to Flux in a month, which is 10.55 Flux. So we multiply that by 1.15, which gives us 12.1325 Flux per month. And at the current price for Flux, which is about 0.72, you're getting about $8.07, less than $10 per month. Considering in a bear market, this is actually not too bad. And at the same time, I totally understand for people who have to pay additional money for the internet and who don't have hard drives already, it may not make sense. So to sum it up, Flux Fractus storage node is starting to pay additional rewards at 15% in addition to the Cumulus node rewards starting March 2023. For Fractus node, you no longer need a SSD. However, you do need a 10 terabytes of HDD with at least 80 megabytes per second write speed. In addition to that requirement, we also have a pretty big bump in our internet bandwidth requirement from 25 megabits per second to 100 megabits per second up and down. So with that said, thank you for watching. Please tune in for the next video where we're doing hands-on on our Proxmox to create a new Fractus node.